Welcome to the Leaderonomics show. Today we have two hosts, myself and Roshan, and we also have a really special guest with us. We're super excited to have the managing partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Sridharan Nair, to be with us on the show.
Sri, great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Welcome here.
Thank you very much.
You know, I've known you for a bit now, and we know of each other. But really, tell us a bit about your background, because tell us, how did you end up becoming managing partner of PwC? What was that journey like? And let's start from school. I mean, what was some of the decisions you made there?
So look, I'll maybe just a little bit about the background, as you mentioned. So firstly, I'd say thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor and a pleasure. So I consider myself a person who grew up in a small town, because
where did you
in
grow?
Malacca. So I was born in Kuching in Sarawak, where my father was a civil servant. But my entire childhood was in Malacca, including my education. I went to a fantastic school. We all feel that way about our schools, many of us, I think. I went to St. Francis Institution, all the way from Standard 1 right till Form 6. Finished my schooling and at that point in time, fortunate enough to get a place in University of Malaya. Did an accounting degree there. Then decided after a short period.
How did that happen? I mean, was there like a love for numbers, or you just
I tell you,
subjected yourself because that's what your father told you, or some
Well, fortunately, my parents didn't influence me that way. But we all have different things that we want to do. And then when I was sort of serious enough, I think in upper secondary, there was an uncle who was an accountant. And the initial impression, I had no idea what he actually did for a living, but he drove a nice car. And I recall every time he comes and visits us, he says that he just spent his time at the golf course. I thought that wasn't a bad thing to do. So that was how it started. But then when I got into it a little bit more, I actually switched from the science stream to the art stream when I moved from Form 5 to Form 6. Those days people do the Form 6 exams. Because I wanted to pursue an accounting degree, so that was in a way. So, and I got into it. I found it interesting. It was a nice mix of business and numbers, and having a connection between both. So that was the genesis of it. Right. So UN spent 4 years there. Great time in KL. So again, small town boy coming to big city, all of that sort of thing. But then after that, I worked for a short period of time, just under a year, and I was fortunate enough to have someone encourage me to look at doing something different and bring a different perspective. And that was going to the UK, working there and pursuing a professional qualification. So I was fortunate again to get a job there. I worked in London for about 4.5 years.
This was also
in a Big Four firm, and did my qualifications at the same time, got my chartered accounting qualification, and then decided to come back to Malaysia. And then you had to make a choice, and I decided to join Pricewaterhouse then. So what I thought would be a 2 to 3 year journey is now 23 years. So I do feel my age.
What was it that made you decide to come back to Malaysia?
Well, I spent my entire time growing up in Malaysia and university as well, right? So the experience in UK was fantastic, and I am happy to talk about that. But I would say that I did think that my calling was back in Malaysia eventually. I was doing well in the UK, I'd like to think. But it was also a great time to come back, because there were lots of opportunities, and I felt that other than family and having my parents, there's a professional reason that I would want to come back to, and that maybe come back to it.
Were there some important lessons that you learned while you were away abroad?
Well, I think so. I mean, maybe the number of things, right? So one, living on your own. While I was at university, I was living in campus and all of that. I think in the UK, as far as the work environment is concerned, it really, for me, the key thing that I learned was the value of being able to articulate and to communicate. We don't sometimes realize that well enough, but as I observed my colleagues and people, I felt I was good in my subject matter, but I wasn't as adept in terms of expressing myself, in terms of challenging, in terms of explaining what you do. So that was a huge learning point, and it built up my confidence to be able to speak up and to say things. So I was a little, I wouldn't consider myself shy, but I was a bit quiet, I would say. That was a big game changer. So it brought me the realization that you need to have the subject matter knowledge, but if it's all within yourself and you can't share that, then it's worth nothing, right? So I think that was for me the biggest learning.
So talk us through your journey in PwC. I'm sure you didn't start at a very senior level. 23 years ago, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, so I
how did that
I joined as what we call an assistant manager at that point in time. And as I mentioned, right, I thought it'll be, this was the mid-90s, in 1994 to be exact. Good time, economy was certainly on an upswing, and this is before the 97, 98 crisis. And I felt that I will, you know, it's people always view, if you come from an accounting background, it's a good place to sort of get yourself immersed in the local market, and then you move on. So that was my thinking, but I enjoyed the work that I did. A lot of hard work, I must say.
And you studied auditing, right?
Yes, so my background, the training that I had in UK and what I was recruited by the firm for was because of the financial services background that I had. And we were at that point in time building a financial services specialist capability within the firm, banking and insurance. And what I did was the insurance company audits, and Lloyd's of London in the UK market is the best place to actually get your training in a way. So I thought I'd do that, but couple of years, and the opportunities, the learning was significant. We were the first firm in Malaysia to specialize in this area. So I found that the learning was fantastic, and I guess the philosophy that I'd taken was, let me just look back every year and see how I've done and how it's progressing. So there wasn't a big push factor. And I said, well, let's just carry on, right? But I didn't have, to be very honest, at that point in time, a view that let me stay on and make my way up to whatever levels and all of that. That was not at that stage. It was taking it year on year.
Fabulous. We're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be right back here on the Leaderonomics show with Sridharan Nair.
Welcome back to Leaderonomics show. So Sri, just now you were telling us a little bit about your background and your experiences. You know, after all of these years, what would be some key challenges you think you face just working your way up, being in PwC, and even before that?
So there are different challenges, I guess, in different phases. I would say that as a young manager then, in a way the challenge was actually deciding what you really wanted to do as well, in terms of you know, medium term, the medium term and beyond. As I mentioned earlier, I think there were good opportunities within the firm to progress, but there are many options outside as well.
Right, and you mentioned you kind of took it one step at a time as well.
Yeah. Yes, but then I also felt that at some stage you have to decide, right? You can't take one step at a time all the time.
Yes.
And therefore, I think a challenge for every person who is progressing is making a decision as to say, how much do you invest in this organization? How much do you stay on? Is this your longer term career and options, or do you look at something different? I do think 20 years on things have changed. There's so many, even more options available these days, so you can afford to switch and do a few things differently. The other challenge, I guess, particularly in my profession, is the long hours and the hard work and the tenacity that's required. And you wake up a number of times wondering in the morning, is this worth it, right? Yeah. And for me, that's one of the things I do say to...
So what made it worth it for you to keep going on and on?
Well, I think I felt that I needed to persevere a little bit, because I didn't, Roshan, really have a major push factor other than the long hours. And I felt that if at that age, in my 20s, if I couldn't put in that time and effort, when would I ever do it? Right? Yeah. And I would just say that, therefore, my advice that I would give, I do this with all our new joiners who come and spend an hour or two with them. And I said, look, there are two things. One is, you must set yourself some short to medium term goals and persevere to hit those goals, and then reassess before you do something else. Too often, despite the numerous options that people have, we find that you know, that's good, you have lots of options, but you are not having enough of tenacity just to hit that medium term goal before you think of doing something else. And the second thing is, it's always on your own accord. You must find something to balance your time at work. And I think we look at organizations to provide all of that. A lot of it is within you. And in my time, whatever different things at different stages, whether as a young man, you know, enjoying my life as a bachelor, or sports, or whatever the case, I thought I found the things that I was interested in, and I kept doing that, which gave me that balance outside work.
Interesting. You know, your field has seen so many changes. The Sarbanes-Oxley, so many other things that happen. So working in an industry that continuously changes with more regulations and more and more issues and complications, right? How would you, if you look back and say, how did you take some of these things in, and how were you able to overcome some of these challenges that were thrown out to you and your organization specifically?
So I think, Roshan, the one fundamental that hasn't changed despite the changing ecosystem and regulations and all, as you described, is the fact that the role that we play as PwC is primarily anchored on this issue of trust.
Okay.
If you take a fundamental audit, we sign off something and people trust that we will call it as it is, right? Whether it's fine or it's not. Right. But that role, I think, with the evolving landscape and ecosystem you mentioned, has become broader now, where people are looking on, for organizations like ours to provide trust beyond traditional numbers. One example I'll give you is around food trust. The ability to rely on food, and it is what it says on the sticker or the label, is something that people are looking for assurance. So organizations like ours have broadened the offerings that we have to do that. Right. The second thing I would say, the big change is obviously around the whole technology and digital space. And I think the challenge for us is to reinvent and to keep ourselves firstly up to date and to be able to be relevant in this digital age as well. So there is an onus on us to keep track of what's going on. The fundamentals of what we ultimately stand for doesn't change, but we need to work within the ecosystem.
But you spoke about trust, but how do you keep trust? I mean, because when you look at the other guy, I mean, like the Arthur Andersen, and how trust was so eroded, to some extent. How do you continuously work to ensure that that trust is never eroded, especially with clients?
It's something we try to ingrain via code of conducts and others internally as well. And what we stand for, and ultimately the true test of that is whether your actions outside and inside consistently are consistent in terms of what you stand for. There have been exceptions across the globe in all organizations where this has not been, but like everything else, you do have one or two bad apples or exceptions, right? So I think it's, to answer your question, it's consistently doing this and to be true to that in terms of your engagement with our clients or internally.
Sri, I understand that you also advocate for reverse mentoring. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. Well, I think we do have a system in the firm where it's upward feedback, and so there's constant feedback that you do get from people who are more junior to you, so to speak. The reverse mentoring episode, there's one particular one that I would call out, and I think we were looking at trying to get more of our partners and directors, this is a few years ago, to become more comfortable being on social media. Okay. And we felt that was where conversations were taking place, and if you want to be relevant, you want to maybe also portray our brand in that space, you need people to engage in it. But we were not as adept, and I myself was not on any social media platform. So what we did is we knew that Gen Ys were comfortable with this. We got them to basically reverse mentor and to sort of navigate and sit with these more senior people and sort of tell them how it's used and get them familiar with it. And so there was great learning, and the other part of it was these individuals had the chance to engage with senior people, which they otherwise would not have normally had. So we ran this for a while, and I think as a result of all of this, we have a huge number of people who are more senior, who are on social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, and the youngsters also benefited. So it's not an ongoing thing, but it's a great experiment, and I'll be a strong advocate for it.
And you're so active with Twitter now, right? I mean, I see all the time. You want to share with everyone your Twitter handle?
Yeah, well,
so you increase
it's simple. It's PwC, right? But I would say this, the one thing I said is like any accountant that's trained in a certain way. When I first went onto Twitter, it was also regulated. I felt I could do this, I shouldn't do that, and all that. And after a while, you just relax, right? You relax and you share a mix of personal and business stuff and all of that. It's about you. It's about you as an individual. So long as you exercise some, some common sense in what you say and you don't, I think it's great. But that's where
has that helped? I mean, in terms of engagement.
Well, I think it's saying I have had random people who have sort of asked for a view or said, "Great thing you're doing." It's given me validation for some things that we do internally. One example is we rolled out this initiative called Flex Friday, where every second Friday of the month in the afternoon, we tell our people you can just take the time off, right? And we all operate on timesheets. They just code down as available time. And the number of responses that I received from various people who I have no idea who they are, who sent me a tweet saying, what a great initiative, and I wish our organization did this, and comments like that validates what you're doing as well. Right. So yeah.
And do your employees also follow you? I mean, is that
Well, we don't compel anyone to do anything. I do have a number of employees who follow me, and I follow them as well. But it's great. I think it's a great business/social
because it opens up
absolutely
space.
And it brings out the individual in a person as well.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back here with our third and final segment of the Leaderonomics show shortly. Welcome back to the Leaderonomics show. I'm with Sridharan Nair, managing partner of PwC. Sri, we are always, every show, we subject our guests to the Thinkonomic challenge.
Hi.
So every guest has to be subjected to the Thinkonomic challenge, and so will you.
Okay.
So the challenge is very simple. We'll give you some time, and let me pull a few random questions here. Audrey is going to subject you to this challenge.
Okay.
You'll have to answer as many questions as you can in the duration stipulated.
Do I get a prize after that? No.
Yes, you do. You get, if you do it well, you get a 1 box of Thinko to take home.
Wow. Look forward to it.
Yes, and we shall go.
Okay, if you had the power of mind control, what would you do?
I would like to make everybody patient, calm, and not resort to violence.
Fantastic. What is beautiful to you in life, and where do you find inspiration?
I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So it's difficult to paint that. So I have my perspectives, but I'll keep it to myself. I find inspiration from people who can inspire others as well. If I look at them, they have the ability to influence, and that's what really, for me, is inspiring.
Okay, question 3. Would you be willing to reduce your life expectancy by 10 years to become extremely attractive or famous? Long life, good
attraction, or famous, being famous and all that is not
You're
an
already
incentive
there.
for
You're
me.
already, yeah.
Not really. I think those are all, this thing. So I think I would appreciate the ability to live longer and enjoy life.
In its fullest.
So no, I wouldn't trade it off.
Okay.
Great.
You got 30 more seconds. Go.
Right. Which is more genuine, giving your time or giving your money?
Absolutely time.
Time, okay. If you could offer a newborn child only one piece of advice, what would it be?
Paint your life with various experiences and go on different journeys.
Last question. If you could wake up tomorrow in the body of someone else currently living, whom would you pick?
I'm an avid football fan, and I've always wanted to be a footballer in my dreams secretly, right? So I would love to have been a Gerrard, who, for those who don't know,
So you're a
is,
Liverpool fan.
I'm a
Liverpool
Liverpool
fan.
All right, so congratulations on sneaking into fourth. Much to the dismay of the Arsenal fans.
Yes, we did it.
So Steven Gerrard, huh? Very good. So you did it on time. You still got time to spare. Well done.
Thank you very much.
You know, one of the things we do in Leaderonomics is leadership development. And Audrey, I mean, you want to ask him what his perspective on leadership is?
Yeah, so we think that character plays a big part, not just performance, but also an overall leadership character of a person that we could role model after. So what do you think would be key characteristics that would be important for a respectable leader?
Okay, so I'm sure there are different perspectives you have, and I have mine. I would say that what has served me well, and I hope I will be able to carry on with living to that, is one, you have to be authentic. You can't preach something and do something else, right? You have to be authentic. So people use that term loosely, but I think it's important to be your genuine self. If you don't believe in something, then you shouldn't pretend that you actually do so. The second thing is to be consistent in your actions. Consistent meaning over a period of time as well. It is not good saying something and all for a period of, but then forgetting about that. So that authenticity and consistency are two things. What has served, I think, and this is something that I grew up as a value from what my dad and mom taught me, is to be two things. I guess one is humility, and whatever you do, you must have humility in what you do. And therefore, I do not like this concept of power distance. The second thing I would say is, if you can, you must help people. If only where it's possible. It's not always possible to do so, but be helpful and as much as you can, and it will. Someone up there, anywhere, will notice that at the end of the day.
Wow. So, you know, I'm sure you have a standard of leadership that you think is an ideal standard. Do you think you've attained that? And do you think? I mean, tell us a bit about what that standard should be, or would, or must be.
Yeah, you know what? So certainly, let me answer the easier part of my question. Is I don't think I've attained that. I don't consider. You know, I think I'm a bit of an accidental leader. I have, my partners who've asked me to play this role, leading the firm. So, and I'm absolutely certain that there's a number of things that I think I've done well, a number of things I haven't done as well. So there's a big learning. So if you ask me, that is really for people to judge how well this person is or isn't. But the other point to it is I don't think there is a perfect leader, because once you think you're perfect, you think there's nothing more to learn.
Absolutely.
And then it's all downhill if you feel that way. Right. So the challenge is to continuously be open to the fact that the ideas and perspectives that you may not have considered before, that you should.
But there's also many perspective on this. Leadership is 7 steps and this and that and all this other stuff. But to you, what is, very simply, what is leadership and what does that mean?
Well, I go back to the point of, inspiration, right? I think leadership means setting a direction and a course in the context of leading an organization, and very importantly, inspiring people to believe in that direction and course and taking them on that journey. So even if you have a vision, but if you can't communicate and inspire people to walk to take that journey, then it's only half the battle. So being able to hopefully bring this organization forward, but carry, and not through force, but inspiration, people along with you.
Good. So, a couple more questions. And we meet a lot of young people in our organization. So if somebody comes up and says, "Look, I just want to be like Sri. I want to grow up one day and be like Sri. I want to be managing partner of a company, and I want to be successful. I want to succeed in life." If you had to impart certain advice to this young person, right? What pieces of advice would you give young graduating students just coming out of university, like you, searching, looking for answers, looking for that perfect role and that career? What advice would you impart to them?
I would go back to a point I made earlier. I do firmly believe in this, that I think that it's important for us, even at the early stage, to set some goals that you want to achieve. And you should take one step at a time, but set those goals. Once you've achieved that, assess where you are, think about what is your next step, and you can decide in the context of whether do I carry on where I am, do I do something else and do that. But you've got to set yourself goals all the time and do that. I don't think there is any shortcut to hard work. At some stage, everybody in their own form or other does go through that, and I think so that hard work and tenacity comes about. And I think at the end of the day, I would say life is not all about work. It's not about the hours you spend, but you must have some interest outside. So broaden your knowledge, broaden your interest to things that are outside. If you have a combination of these 3 things, it'll serve you well, not just in work, but in life as a whole. So that's what I would say to someone. And the 4th thing I would say is don't try to be like Sri, try to be better than Sri.
Absolutely. So Audrey has a fascination with men in suits, and she aspires for her husband to one day become a CEO.
Right.
Don't tell everyone.
So he's getting there. But if you were to address and advise a group of CEOs, and hopefully Audrey's husband is in one of is there, what advice would you impart to a group of CEOs who are kind of they're starting their businesses, they're growing, but they just cannot get to the next level and scale their businesses?
From a business context or from a leadership context?
Both, I think
both,
yeah.
Look, I mean, again, the business depends. From a leadership point of view, I would say that it is the point about carrying your people along with you. It's important, and in order for people need to trust you as a leader, and you need to have followers, right? If you have people who believe in you, and in order to do that, you do have to be genuine. You do have to inspire. You need to communicate. I think the point I made is this point about power distance and being aloof and all of that. Nobody likes someone who's aloof. Everybody relates better to a person who is a bit more engaging and all of that. So it goes back to my earlier point. I'm sorry I keep harping on it, but humility. I cannot stand arrogance in a person, and I think leaders who ultimately are down to earth, who are willing to engage and be a little bit more human, just like every one of us, have a much better chance of carrying people along with them on their journey. So that would be my advice. I mean, look, I am no one to sort of suggest a broader piece of advice to leaders, but at a more personal level, these are things that I think have served me reasonably well, and hopefully will do so for others as well.
Very good.
Fantastic. Sri, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for sharing with us, and we've learned so much. I'm sure our viewers have too.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaderonomics show.